Hello, my name is Janae Cottrell, and this is my presentation on the photographer Robert Mapplethorpe. Robert Mapplethorpe gained recognition for his black and white photographs that explored themes of sexuality, desire, and identity. His images often featured explicit depictions of BDSM practices, male nudes, and unconventional sexual acts. These provocative works drew both praise and controversy, leading to heated debates about obscenity and censorship in the arts. These are the photographs of Patti Smith in the mid-1970s to late 1970s, and she wrote the foreword in an introduction that often appears at the beginning of a book for one of Mapplethorpe's final projects, Flowers, a book of his flower studies. He took many photographs of Patti Smith. He photographed her for the cover of her 1973 volume of poetry, Wit, and her album Horses in 1975. Horses went on to achieve iconic status in popular music and defined Smith's an androgynous and uncompromising style. In Mapplethorpe's photograph, Patti Smith, 1975, Smith's pose is both vulnerable and confrontational. She wears a disheveled shirt and leans against the wall, staring at the camera. But her raised arm pose gesture of playing with her tie makes her seem nervous and unsure. He photographed Smith again for her fourth album, Waves, in 1979. By this time, she had achieved commercial and critical success and had decided to take a break from her music career. She had met and fallen in love with the American musician Fred Sonic Smith and wanted to focus on family life. Her music on Waves reflects a new sense of calm, charm, and sincerity, and Mapplethorpe captures this in the image he took for the album's cover. He rarely photographed anyone or anything in movement. Here the wind seems to have caught the cloth that Patti Smith has wrapped around herself. Otherwise, the pose and composition are classically frontal and centralized. He has used the row of headers in the brick wall and the narrow strip of ground to provide horizontal lines above and below the vertical figure of Smith to give stability to the composition. Despite the controversies surrounding his work, he was also celebrated for his technical mastery and ability to capture both beauty and vulnerability in his subjects. He applied precise lighting techniques to create stark contrast between light and shadow in his photographs, resulting in visually striking compositions. He took a number of photographs of children throughout his career. They were mostly children of friends, or sometimes he was commissioned by society figures to photograph their children. In contrast to his highly posed portraits of adults, his images of children emphasize their innocence, lack of self-consciousness, and playfulness. His approach to photographing children was inspired by the photographs of Victorian photographer Julia Margaret Cameron. He felt strongly that he should have the consent of the people he photographed, and once stated that children were the most difficult subject to photograph. You can't control them. They never do what you want them to do. In this photograph, right here in the middle, Lindsay Key, 1985, the little girl looks away from the camera, perhaps avoiding the gust of wind that we see catching her hair and dress. Her posture and bare feet suggest a playful nature and make her look relaxed. Mapplethorpe photographed her outside of the studio, which is untypical of much of his work from this time. The dark shadows cast by the girl contrast strongly with her white dress, while trees with their abstract shadow shapes in the background. Although he captures her innocence and playfulness, Lindsay looks confident, cool, and solemn in the photograph, and very much her own person. In order to create his own images for these collages, he turned to photography, initially using a Polaroid SX70 camera. Interested in portraiture, he worked as a staff photographer for Andy Warhol's Interview magazine. He is best known for his powerful black and white portraits and self-portraits. His photographs both challenge us and present us with images of classical beauty. Using his photographs in the artist rooms collection, this resource takes an in-depth look at some of the key themes he explored in his work. In 1980, he met Lisa Leone, the first world women's bodybuilding champion. They worked together over the next few years, creating various portraits and figure studies, including both full and fragmented body images. And in these photographs, which were published in a book in 1983, Lady Lisa Leone took on different guises and played with the idea types of women. His subjects were from a wide range of social and cultural contexts, from royalty to aristocracy to rent boys. A large proportion of his portraits from the 1980s were of prominent figures in the arts, such as Truman Capote, William Burroughs, and Andy Warhol, and his portraits can be seen as a reflection of New York's cultural scene at that time. But whoever he photographed, all the images are characterized by Mapplethorpe's style. His relentless pursuit of beauty with no imperfections. Rather than putting across the character of each sitter, the photographs reflect his vision, showing his perfect idea of the sitters. The critic and curator Janet Carden described Mapplethorpe's portraiture subjects as avatars for his vision. His impact on the art world cannot be overstated. His provocative images challenged perceptions of sexuality, gender identity, and beauty standards. He opened up important conversations about freedom of expression in art, ultimately leading to greater acceptance and understanding of alternative lifestyles. His interest in universal values such as symmetry and beauty is evident in his approach to photography. He meticulously composed his images, paying close attention to the arrangement of elements within the frame. This emphasis on formal qualities can be seen in his use of strong lines, geometric shapes, and balanced compositions. The artist also utilized color contrast to enhance the visual impact of his photographs, whether it was through bold juxtapositions or subtle tonal variations. He employed color as a tool to create dynamic and visually striking images. Cinematic lighting was another essential element of Mapplethorpe's aesthetic. He carefully controlled lighting conditions to sculpt his subjects and emphasize their form. The resulting dramatic effects often gave his photographs a sculptural quality, enhancing the sense of three-dimensionality. In 1984, he photographed Grace Jones, the Jamaican-American singer, songwriter, model, and actress. Jones, known for her androgynous looks and her provocative behavior, was a prominent figure in the New York art and social scene in the 1980s. His photograph of Grace Jones shows her before a performance at Paradise Garage, an alternative dance club in New York City. The artist Keith Haring had decorated her in body paint. Keith Haring had been introduced to Grace Jones by Andy Warhol, and Warhol also arranged for Mapplethorpe to photograph her. Although a collaborative project, the photograph itself is classic Mapplethorpe. Grace Jones is photographed straight on facing the camera and appears in complete symmetry. Jones often adopts male-looking personas in her performances, challenging representations of the female body. She transforms her body into a site of power, and his strong formal image of her captures this. His sculptural use of photography refers to his ability to transform two-dimensional images into objects with depth and physical presence. His careful attention to composition, lighting, and form allowed him to create photographs that appeared almost tangible, evoking a sense of sculpture. Overall, his formalist approach to photography, characterized by sublime composition, use of color contrast, cinematic lighting, and its sculptural qualities, has earned him recognition as a masterful artist who strived for universal values of beauty and symmetry. His subjects often represent a particular cultural scene, with figures such as Andy Warhol, Marianne Faithfull, and Grace Jones. The techniques that he used were lighting, composition, contrast, posing and staging, technical precision, and printing. Overall, his technique was characterized by meticulous attention to detail, careful composition, and use of light and shadow to create visually compelling images. He developed both in technical mastery and a bold personal aesthetic, known for his signature black and white portraits and provocatively staged nudes. He photographed models, celebrities, and individuals from his social circle. He had so many iconic photographs when he was alive, but he pushed societal boundaries and challenged traditional notions of eroticism and beauty. The images sparked debates about artistic freedom and censorship, cementing Mapplethorpe as a provocative and polarizing figure. He was really instrumental in bringing important issues to the foreground, important conversations we're still having today, by celebrating his own sexual identity, memorializing an increasingly visible community of gay men. Mapplethorpe afforded greater visibility to queer narratives. His work paved the way for subsequent generations of photographers and artists who continue to push the limits of representation and celebrate and explore their own identity. His works are as inspirational, challenging today as they were in the 70s and 80s, when they were first displayed. During this time, he was also photographing the male figure. His sitters were often athletic black men, including models, dancers, and bodybuilders, all with muscular and well-defined bodies. He chose black models because, as his biographer Patricia Morrisroe suggested, he could extract a greater richness from the color of their skin. The images, which were published as Black Book in 1986, included photographs of fragmented bodies such as a torso, an extended arm, buttocks, and thighs. He once stated, "I zero in on the body part that I consider the most perfect part in that particular model." His Black series concluded the athlete and model Ken Moody and the dancer Derek Cross. The work Derek Cross, 1983, the frame is filled by Cross's torso. The arch of the body suggests movement, while the draped fabric around the waist enhances the sense of performance and sculpture. The twisted movement of the body highlights Cross's muscle definition, emphasizing his physically and strength. By the 1980s, his subject matter focused on statuesque, male and female nudes, delicate flower still lifes, and highly formal portraits of artists and celebrities. Mapplethorpe's first studio was at 24 Bond Street in Manhattan. In 1989, when he was near death from the effects of AIDS, he urged her to take particular care of his flower images in its garden museum. The Selby Garden is displaying several of his black and white images of flowers. First printed under his direction at Graphic Studio, Tampa, Florida, in the garden and its conservatory, cameos of living flowers evoked aspects of his use of light, shade, and texture. He took especial care for framing the flowers in his images and contrasting them with their background. White tulips before a black backing were a favorite example. I feel like his photographs are mostly infused with personal references and subjective expression and are allusions to real time and emotion. The pictures have an abstract beauty because what is depicted in them is not immediately recognizable, and the ubiquity also brings a certain erotic feeling, and they are pretty much emphasizing and geometric in many of his portraits and self-portraits. And that is it.